All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
To you, I'm Kim McAllister for Mark Thompson in Washington, D.C. Today, he'll be joining the show tomorrow live from D.C. And through the week, and then he's traveling again on Friday. So that's how this week will pan out. Albert, hello.
Good morning, Kim. How are we doing today? How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I had a cocktail. I don't usually, but I had a cocktail this weekend.
Treat yourself, Kim. You deserve it.
That's right. How was your weekend?
It was good. I'm working the other job that Mark always talks about, my secret job. So,
yeah,
just working.
A lot of big working. All right. Well, it was hot this weekend, and apparently the heat wave is still an issue across America. It's
weird because I felt like we had a pretty cold summer leading up to the past. I feel like the past few weeks have been scorching hot. But before that, I feel like, where's summer at? We're waiting.
And you know what? Everywhere I looked this weekend, there were people dressed in pink. I don't know about you, but like the Barbie movie was front and center everywhere. So,
it's for sure taking up all over social media, and it was the weekend, so people have a lot of time off. So they did the twofer. I think they're calling it the Barbenheimer.
Did you do that or no? You were working, so you didn't participate.
I was working, but I'm thinking about watching either of the movies. I saw very funny memes about people sitting front row for the Oppenheimer movie and how that wouldn't turn out well. So I think I would like to try that out.
Well, let me tell you, I couldn't look at social media, couldn't drive around my town or walk around my town, pardon me, without seeing people that were dressed in pink. Everywhere I went, people were talking about this Barbie movie much more than the Oppenheimer movie. And I see that Barbie brought in at least $155 million at the box office over the weekend.
Yeah, and I think it eclipsed way more than Oppenheimer. So the Barbie stands. A lot more people played with Barbies growing up than were fans of somebody who was making a deadly weapon.
Kim. What's interesting is that I don't think it got the best reviews by the reviewers, but people seemed to like it. The people that played with Barbies as a kid or whatever, but the outfits, I will say that people dressed up this weekend to show up at the Barbie premiere were pretty interesting. Here's some of the moviegoers in Los Angeles. So, and then I have a picture of over in England, some of the outfits as well. And even here in my town of Petaluma, they were dressed up like all this. So it's interesting. What's also interesting is, and I didn't realize there was such a controversy politically over Barbie. And over the weekend, I saw conservative hosts were really upset over this. They are calling Barbie woke. They think Barbie is a friend of trans people. They think Barbie is a feminist. And all this is bad because I guess they were hoping that they were talking about, don't go see Barbie. It's woke and it's a liberal movie. Well, if the box office results are any indication, most people seem to ignore that and went to see it anyway. So I like to think of it as maybe an indication that we'll head in the right direction this election. If we can ignore the whole it's woke, don't do it type of situation. I don't know. As this one
Can movies just be movies too? Can we just remove any political aspect to it? Can we just go? It's the weekend. Even if you're a politician, you don't even want to think about any of that. Just you want to have your time off. Just go to the movie theaters, watch a movie, not even think about anything. It's a movie.
Right. It's a movie. I will say, though, that in some cases, movies can be kind of representative of society, right? I mean, they reflect what we're thinking about. They can reflect what we're talking about. They can influence what we're thinking about and talking about. So in that way, maybe. But you're right. Sometimes you just want to go see a movie and check out. There's this host. His name is Ben Shapiro. And he did not like the Barbie movie to the point where at the beginning of his show, He set 3 Barbies on fire in a barbecue grill. I think the only thing that did was have him breathe in toxic fumes, but he put them in a pink Barbie Jeep and set the whole thing on fire. It's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. He said, the basic sort of premise with the film, politically speaking, is that men and women are on two sides and they hate each other. And literally, the only way you can have a happy world is if the women ignore the men and the men ignore the women. He didn't like it. Yeah. He's not the only one that didn't like it. He's not the only one. Barbie. There's Barbie. I mean, it just seems like it's just such a, I don't want to say it's a non-thinking movie. I didn't see it. My daughter went to see it twice. She said it wasn't what she expected. She said she's 13 and the movie is PG-13. She said there was a lot of adult stuff in it. And she just thought that she was going to see a movie that would be like the Barbie movies of her youth, Mermaid Barbie, pop singer Barbie. Like, she thought it was just going to be different. And I guess she didn't expect it to have a social message, or I don't know. She said it was kind of weird. But okay, if it makes you think a little bit, that's great. But she's not the only one that didn't love the movie. And Ben Shapiro is not the only conservative host that freaked out over the movie. I think we have some video from.
Pull it up, Kim.
Yeah. Oh, you've got it. Okay. Yeah. So he's a former attorney. He's got his own radio program. It's Dean Obadullah is his name. And he wrote this piece for CNN. And I think he appeared on CNN talking about these voices that are so upset about the whole Barbie thing, from being woke to somehow brainwashing young girls with Chinese propaganda. That's what they think. Apparently Senator Ted Cruz was upset about it as well. Yeah, but and the quote in the piece that he wrote is that those conservative pundits were no match for Mattel's Barbie. She drove her pink dream camper right over the critics to box office records. So
I couldn't find the video. There's a whole bunch of videos that isn't him talking, but it's weird because the conservatives are kind of using this as, it's kind of like hot and in the news. Obviously, everyone's talking about it. So I think they're kind of using it as a pivot to, spread the message or.
Well, let me tell you, since we don't have the film, let me tell you that Republicans, according to this article, in July declared war on Barbie. That's what he says. Let's see. They say they were redrawing a world map to appease China. So that was upsetting to some lawmakers. Remember, there was a map of the China Sea in the movie, and that was upsetting to people. Congressman Mike Gallagher, who is from Wisconsin, and leads a panel on countering China's influence, said the map, which is cartoonish or crayon, appeared to be supporting Beijing's territorial claims to a contested portion of the South China Sea. Senator Cruz also weighing in with comments about Chinese propaganda. Fox News has repeated attacks on the film over everything from wokeness to inclusivity. One segment apparently on Fox talked about Barbie coming from Movie Guide, a Christian movie review site that said, "Don't take your daughter to Barbie." It's all about transgender performers and LGBTQ stories. Barbie gets a woke makeover, is what they say. It's a movie. It's a movie. And the one good thing I will say about Barbie is it seems to be making people think a little bit about, did they play with Barbies as a kid? How did they play with Barbies as a kid? What did Barbies mean? It's okay if you think about feminism. It's okay if Barbie made you think about how women are treated in the world. That's okay. It's not going to kill you. Lord. Anyway, a lot of Barbie situations A lot of people talking about Barbie. So,
including
did you?
us, Kims.
Yes,
Do you have any plans to watch the movie?
I don't think, and I don't think they need my money with $155 million on opening weekend. I think I'll wait
I
for
mean,
it
with
to
the strikes, maybe,
stream.
Kim. Maybe not the actors, but maybe
Yeah,
some of the behind the scenes, our fellow SAG-AFTRA, if you're still part of that, members. Yeah.
yeah. I think I'll wait for it just to stream. Are you going to go see it?
If somebody sends me an invite, I won't say no. But I with the secret job in this one, it's like it's tough to find a normal watching movie time.
Right. Um, I have a comment from Luis. He says it's not a non-thinking movie. Love how a well-done cautionary historical piece about nuclear destruction sparks less conversation than the perils of woke feminism and being LGBTQ friendly.
That's very funny because on the other side you have Oppenheimer, just the room next door.
It just didn't do as well at the box office, Luis. I think, I think it did well, and I think it's an important movie. I think the reviews of it were better, although I did see a piece in the Chronicle by Drew Magary who didn't like it at all. He said it was like trying to stuff 8 pounds of plutonium in a 3-pound bag. So he didn't care for the message of Oppenheimer. I feel like, though, since more people went to see Barbie and since everyone's talking about Barbie, that maybe that's why our focus is on Barbie. But I'm not saying that Barbie is more important than Oppenheimer in any way.
I mean, there's one movie where we know what happens at
Yeah.
the end, and there's
Yeah.
another one where we don't know what's going to happen. So I think there's if you were looking at it with simple terms, that's what Barbie has going for it.
Beth says, why do right-wing Republicans insist on making every situation into a political situation? Yeah. Spencer calling the MAGA people desperate. Perry Joe Jim Bob, don't plan to see it. Might see it, just not my cup of herbal tea. And Nancy said, enjoyed Barbie more than I thought I would. Oppenheimer is next. Yeah. That's good. I mean, I think it's funny because I was reading a review of a friend on Facebook who went to see it, and she said it really made her think. And then she said, what do you think girls did with Barbies? We turned them into astronauts and doctors and used our imagination with them. They're a blank canvas for us to make into whatever kind of woman we saw ourselves wanting to be, any dream we had. That's what Barbie did for a living. And so for a lot of women, I think, well, I'll say girls and women, but I know girls aren't the only people that play with Barbies. But for a lot of people that played with Barbies as kids, that was really the first look at feminism, about being whatever you wanted to be, about having no restrictions. So it's kind of a extrapolation into the way we played with them as kids. At least that's kind of how I looked at it.
That's for extrapolation, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'll take the ding. Thank you so much. Speaking of women and women's rights and them being frittered away in this country, I was reading this article in CNN about what doctors are doing as abortion rules are changed from state to state. And some that are still doing residencies in OBGYN or even other specialties, and how laws being changed, abortion rights being taken away are affecting future plans. One woman in this story said she wanted to go home. She's in Michigan, completing her residency in OBGYN. She said she wanted to go back to her home state of Idaho, where there's a shortage of doctors to take care of people. And she's not going to do that now because Idaho is changing laws. And apparently medical professionals are having uncertainty about what to do, because if they end up in the wrong state, they can go to jail or be faced with all kinds of legal penalties. So CNN goes around talking to these residents, students, and doctors about what their plans are. And I don't know if they actually spoke with anyone who said it doesn't matter to me, because all the people in the story say it does matter. It really does matter. This one woman who wanted to go to Idaho said she wanted to make a difference in the state. She said, I was really excited about the idea I get to move home with this population I grew up with and that I could make a difference. She said, I felt called, like that was where I could still make the most difference. And it was really important to me to continue to pursue obstetrics and gynecology, whatever that might look like. But for my safety and my ability to really treat my patients, she said, I knew as soon as Idaho started passing laws criminalizing transportation across state lines and all that sort of thing, it would just not be a hospitable place for me to practice medicine. And, that's sort of heartbreaking, she said. So she's not going home anymore. She's got to figure out what state she's going to move to so that she can safely practice. And that leaves women in Idaho in a lurch, in a state where you need care and you need people. Another story, a man who's already a doctor in the state of Washington. He is an interventional radiologist. And you wouldn't think that he would be important in the reproductive health process, but he reads a lot of ultrasounds. And I guess could be named in some case where someone ended up having an abortion because, he read the ultrasound as that, that it was a life-threatening pregnancy. He said getting bleeding under control or having a patient have definitive treatment might kill an embryo, and he might be put under legal pressure or legal penalty. He said he's worried about not being able to treat ectopic pregnancies. He says, and this I thought was really powerful, when I've been contacted about other opportunities in other places, I've flatly rejected them. I wouldn't even consider doing moonlighting in Idaho, even though I could drive there from the state of Washington. I just wouldn't. He said, I flat out tell recruiters, just look at the map. Figure out whether the state has restrictions against abortion. And if so, don't contact me because I won't even consider it. He said, I won't go to any place really in the Southeast, and I won't even go to Florida on vacation right now. Sorry, Wes in Florida. He won't even go to Florida on vacation. He won't also pay for his daughters to go to college in any state that has reproductive limitations. He said, my older daughter's 18. You go somewhere on vacation, you find out you're having a miscarriage, you could potentially die because they won't treat it. My daughter's getting ready to go to college. She doesn't want to go to Idaho or Texas or any of those places, but if she did, I wouldn't pay for it. And then they quote this doctor in San Diego, who is the only one on the piece that is able to use her whole name, but she talks about how even in San Diego, she's had to take steps to ensure her protection of her staff, the protection of her patients, that they've been threatened, harassed, attacked for providing care. She says, what we see here is a lot of patients traveling to get care. There's a lot of confusion and chaos, and it's really exactly what was intended by when Dobbs came down. It wasn't a surprise because she said, I knew abortion care was already under attack. So good piece in CNN, really talking about the effect all these new laws and rules and all these states are having on the medical profession, on how people practice medicine, and on the care that people are going to get in certain states. Let's talk about the GOP for a moment, because there are 7 Republican candidates now that are meeting the polling threshold to appear on a debate stage. Yes, you have to poll at least 1%. And so 7 of them, of these GOP candidates, are meeting the criteria and will be able to participate. So it's going to be a more full debate stage than we had seen. So it's former President Trump, it's Ron DeSantis, tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. We've got Mike Pence in there, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and Chris Christie. And they have all hit 1% or higher in at least 2 qualifying national polls and 2 qualifying state polls from separate states. That's the requirement for the Republican National Committee in order for you to hit the debate stage. You also have to meet a fundraising criteria and sign a pledge to support whoever eventually becomes the Republican presidential nominee. That would preclude me right there. If I was one of the 7 and you said you have to sign a pledge if former President Trump becomes the nominee to support him, I might be like, yeah, I don't think I can sign it. My bad. I'm sorry. No can do. So yeah, it'll be an interesting debate. I don't know. I don't see in this when the debate is scheduled for, but with Chris Christie and Donald Trump on the same stage, it'll be interesting. Some of the GOP candidates had to resort to some pretty interesting ways of raising money, like promising people gift cards and doing some weird things. I don't know. New ways to raise cash in order to hit that threshold. And I don't know if you guys saw this over the weekend, that Elon Musk is going a little bonkers again. So here you have Twitter. You've got the bird. You've got everyone saying, I know Mark doesn't like it, but this person tweeted, that person tweeted, even folks in the news will say so-and-so tweeted as if it's somehow, legitimate or newsworthy. And it didn't seem to be at first, but it's now accepted. It took a while for that to get into our consciousness, right? And everyone knows Twitter. And now he wants to change it. Yeah. Listen to this. So Elon Musk is deciding that he wants to change the Twitter logo to this, an X. He's very into the X. He wants to name his kids X things and
Tesla's the actual cars. There's a Tesla X,
Tesla X, SpaceX,
Model
right?
X,
yeah. So it's all very X-y, but that's what it looks like. He wants to change the Twitter.
I think X.com. I think he tweeted that X.com automatically redirects to Twitter.
To Twitter, yeah. So the X logo would replace the bird. It would be a major rebranding. He already bought Twitter for $44 billion. I don't understand, and gutted the company and completely changed everything. A lot of people would say ruined Twitter. And now he wants to spend money on rebranding? Does it need to be rebranded? Did he need to spend that money? I'm going to say, Elon, don't bother. Really. On Monday of last week, the X started appearing on the desktop version of Twitter. But you still got the bird if you are looking at Twitter on your phone. Apparently, Elon Musk was asking fans for logo ideas, and he likes this minimalist Art Deco X. He's saying it'll be refined, and soon we shall bid adieu to the Twitter brand and gradually all the birds. That's what he says. I just don't get it. Yeah, X.com, you're right, Albert, redirects to now Twitter.com. What an absolute waste of time, space, and money. If that's the thing you're most concerned about, you think that people aren't going to Twitter because they don't like the bird? Or do you think X is somehow going to attract people to Twitter? That is the dumbest thing. That's the dumbest thing. I just don't get it. You just don't get it, do you? He has a son with the singer Grimes. The son's name is a collection of letters, but they call the son X, is what they say. That's how you say it. I can't even spell it. It's X. Of course, yes, SpaceX. He's fascinated with the letter X. I don't know. Linda Yaccarino is the CEO of Twitter. She says, X would be the future state of unlimited interactivity, centered in audio, video, messaging, payments, banking, creating a global marketplace for ideas, goods, services, and opportunities. I think that's dumb. I don't know. What do you think, Albert? Do you think X is going to make a difference?
I think he's going to test if people still really care about Twitter, because people still do, and people still use it. It's highly controversial. It's polarizing, but people still use it. And I know a lot of people have hopped over to Threads, but I know a lot of people tried it. It was a little bit, and then back to Twitter.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't tried Threads yet. I think I'm going to, though. And I am on Twitter, although not super active on it. But
I kind of selected all the people. Obviously, you do kind of select the people you follow, so that kind of influences your page. So a lot of my Twitter is exactly what you think it is. It's very alive during any sporting event. So like during the NBA season, it's crazy. So during football season, it's crazy. So I just tend to have a lot more sports stuff on there than all the other crazy. So I think that's what I like about Twitter. You could kind of control what you see to an extent. They have a For You bar and then the suggested bar. So I don't know. Yeah. I still use it. I'll still probably use it. Obviously, Mark wants me to tweet the show, so it's something I didn't.
Even if it's now, you're gonna have to X the show.
Yeah, I'll have to X the show.
I mean, I don't know. Another story, we've been following this story on the Mark Thompson show. And by the way, I should note that in just a couple of minutes, actually, I don't think I have time to tell you about this story, but I will tell you about this story when we come back from news, because we've been following this story out of Stanford about the journalist at the Stanford Daily who picked up this story from a website of scientists that were questioning some pictures from research that the president of the university was involved in. And the journalist, who happens to be a freshman, did some digging and ended up causing the president of Stanford University to resign. And we know more about this journalist and who he is, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. But coming up after news, and I'm really excited about this awesome interview that Mark did with progressive talk show host Thom Hartmann. We tried to get him on the show for a while, and it's an interview Mark left us behind. So we will share that video with you after the news. But why don't we get to news right now, Albert? It's only a minute away, so we might as well just go for it. And then we'll give you a taste of Mark after the news.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Something happened to the music.
No.
Let me try that again.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. The Justice Department is telling Texas, remove the floating barriers from the Rio Grande or you're going to get sued. In a letter to Republican Governor Greg Abbott, the feds call the barrier illegal, said it poses serious risk to public safety and the environment. Abbott maintains Texas has the right to defend its border. This floating border, like barrels with razor wire around it, been cutting people and hurting people. There's another interest rate hike on the horizon. The Federal Reserve will meet Tuesday and Wednesday in Washington, D.C., with a rate decision coming after the second day. Last month, policymakers pressed pause on rate hikes for the first time in 15 months. The United Nations is in talks with North Korea for the return of an American soldier. Travis King fled across the heavily militarized border and into the secretive state last week. The UN's confirmation that dialogue and discussions were ongoing comes as North Korea has remained publicly silent about King. Wonder what's happening with him right now. How he's being treated. Police in Miami say they ended a standoff on Sunday with an armed man holding hostages on a yacht. The yacht's owner reportedly chartered the vessel to a group of at least 17. When it was time to return to the dock, though, they allegedly held the captain at gunpoint, demanding their money back. No details on any arrest, but that situation apparently ended safely. And as Albert and I were talking about, the Barbenheimer phenomenon is even bigger than first thought. Latest weekend domestic box office numbers show Greta Gerwig's Barbie earned $162 million, the biggest debut weekend of 2023 and the biggest opening weekend ever for a film directed by a woman. Meanwhile, Christopher Nolan's World War II drama blew past expectations with an opening weekend total of $82.4 million. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well.
What he's got going here is a situation.
You people are crazy.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
I cannot believe it.
It's fantastic.
Thompson, party of four.
What are you doing?
You cannot say you love your country.
Sayonara, sucker. Good day, sir.
Why are you yelling? Seriously, what the
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, if you know me at all, you know I'm a massive fan of our next guest. I think he's without peer when it comes to bringing into the dialogue and discourse concepts about our country, about governance, and writing on progressive politics. And it's not just writing. He is the top progressive voice on his syndicated radio show. How about it for Thom Hartmann, everybody?
Thanks,
Look at you, Thom Hartmann.
Great to see you again.
Yeah. Albert, I thought I was supposed to have some like royal music to bring on Thom Hartmann. Was that Toe? Thank you. That's a little bit better. Yeah. Very good. All right, let's not, he's embarrassed by it. Stop it. All right, anyway. Hey, Thom, I love your new book, The Hidden History of America, of American Democracy, I should say, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living. In fact, there's a lot in that title that is reflected right out of the gate in the book. I've read a bunch of your stuff. You know, I love the Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight that you did. This is no different. First of all, it told me a bunch of things that I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know. I think I accepted all of the ways in which our democracy and the birth of our nation is talked about and then changed in the various ways it's talked about through generations. Your essential premise here is that democracy, as bold an experiment as we're involved in, predated America by a bunch.
Yeah, like 300,000 years.
And native peoples, in essence, their societies were more reflective of democracies than even ours.
More often than not. Yeah, there were some native societies that were little dictatorships. There was an interesting piece just published last week in Nature magazine, in the peer-reviewed journal, Science Journal. There's some anthropologists and archaeologists down in Central America who found in Mesoamerica, in ancient Mesoamerica, you know, like 5, 10, 15,000 years ago, they found all these communities that there was no evidence of really rich people and no evidence of great poverty, no evidence of essentially a ruling class. These were communities from as small as a few thousand people to as many as several 100,000 people who were run democratically thousands of years ago. And what they determined was that those communities were actually more resilient than were their neighbors that were run by little dictators. They were less likely to fail in the face of drought or famine or even being attacked by others. The resilience level of democracies, small d democracies, much, much higher, at least in that study.
It's interesting, too, because the other thing that I didn't realize is that those who crafted our Constitution were students of that, some of what you've talked about. That is to say, Jefferson's tie to native peoples, for example, you discuss in the book. and they were such students of political philosophy and of those native peoples to which you've referred, that it was interesting to learn that clearly was informing a lot of the way they were pursuing crafting our Constitution.
Yeah, it's really a pretty amazing story. Jefferson was enamored of the what were called the Whig histories, and I don't recall if this. Typically when I write a book, about 20% of it gets cut out by the editors, and I don't recall if this made it through into the book or not. But there was a history of England by Paul de Rapin de Torras that was written in the late 1600s, and or the early 1700s. And Jefferson was a huge proponent of this book, and it was the story of the tribal people of the United Kingdom, the red-haired tribal people. Jefferson was a redhead. The red-haired tribal people who were conquered before the Roman conquest in like 150 BC or whenever it was. And they lived small d democratically. They had an egalitarian society. They had, a council of elders that kind of made decisions. It was an amazing history. David Hume hated it. There was a big debate about it in the 1700s about whether these Whig histories were accurate or just speculation. But he also, he traveled with his father when he was a young man. His father was a map maker in Virginia, traveled all over Virginia, got to know Native Americans. Half of Virginia at that time was Indian territory, and spoke several of their languages. His father did, Peter Jefferson. And then Jefferson got to know a lot of Native Americans throughout his life. So did John Adams. Probably the one who was the most steeped in Native American lore was Ben Franklin. He was for 30 years. He was the U.S. envoy to various Native tribes, and used a lot of Native American iconography in his promotion of the Revolution in the early Republic.
By the way, just to digress, because you mentioned Ben Franklin, his brother totally hooked up with the British side, right? He was, when I say totally hooked up, he didn't support a revolution. Am I wrong about that? I thought I read that in your book also. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't recall. Franklin.
That's wrong.
His grandson was, a great proponent of democracy, and was put in prison with John Adams because he published an article critical of Adams. But I
probably was having an adult beverage reading your, reading your book. And
it's a detail that I found someplace and I threw it in, and it just didn't stick in my brain.
No. I think you'd remember that. But more to the point. What I learned from those guys who you just talked about, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, is far be it from, they were not building a wall necessarily between themselves and Native American cultures or native cultures, native peoples. They were really using that as a platform on which to base a lot of the ideology and the stuff behind our Constitution and trying to build this society so it was workable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what's interesting is Americans think, the history we learn is so Eurocentric. The old joke that, American history is the history of dead white men. The story that we've told ourselves about democracy, American democracy, is that we got the ideas from dead white men. John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, not David Hume so much, but
Hobbes, maybe.
Yeah, Thomas Hobbes, exactly. Diderot. And Rousseau. And in fact, those guys got their ideas of democracy. Those European Enlightenment philosophers got their ideas of democracy from a group of Native Americans, mostly Huron, French-speaking Native Americans, who traveled to Europe as guests of the French evangelists, the Catholic priests who had set up community in the Huron, with the Huron nation, and engaged in vigorous debates about democracy with the intelligentsia of the time. And, Locke actually in one of his footnotes writes about, attending one of these salons. And so the Enlightenment philosophers actually got their idea from Native Americans. And then the American founders quoted the Enlightenment philosophers because that was much more politic than saying, last week I was down at Aniset's house and he had this to say to me. So we kind of laundered, the founders laundered their radical democracy ideas through the through the writings of British and French Enlightenment philosophers who were basically just reciting what the Native Americans had told them.
That's just great. It's that's the Eurocentricity again.
Yeah.
I through the book, in addition to this, and I love the fact that this book has a sort of call to action also, which we can get to. But I also like the way you dispelled, frankly, a myth. And I think I had this myth, and this is what I was talking about when I was saying that I think I've accepted a lot of these myths. When talking about specific aspects of the Constitution, you talk about the Electoral College. Now, of course, we all, the demons of the Electoral College are visited upon us, it seems, in every election cycle for president. But I wonder if you could speak to the misconception and then set us straight on the actual thinking behind the Electoral College.
The Electoral College was a reasonably good idea when it was posited, and within 50 years, it became an anachronism. It became unnecessary. The problem that the founders were looking at was, if you're going to have a national election for president in a country where electricity hasn't even been invented yet, Ben Franklin was still flying kites in thunderstorms. So you didn't even have the telegraph, much less radio or television. And, the Pony Express hadn't even been developed yet. I mean, it could take 2 weeks for a letter to travel from Georgia to Washington, D.C. So how would somebody in Georgia know whether this guy who's running for president, who's up there in D.C. or in New York State, is a scoundrel or a drunkard or, a terrible person who has, good PR or a newspaper publisher that he bought off in Georgia? And so what they did was they said, okay, instead of voting for the president, what the people in Georgia will do, and of course every state as well, is they'll vote for local electors, for wise elders, essentially. And this was kind of based on Jefferson's notion of the Wicke Gemeinschaft, which was the council of wise elders that Paul de Rupinder Terrasse, the Whig histories, wrote about in the pre-Roman era British Isles, and also, kind of based on the Native American councils. And so these wise elders would then, get the sense of their people. Oh yeah, you all want us to vote for Andrew Jackson. Okay, cool. So now we'll go up to Washington, D.C. and we're going to interview this guy. And if he's a drunk or if he's a bad guy, and we'll talk to his friends and neighbors and we'll figure it out. And if he shouldn't be president, we'll vote for somebody else. And the Constitution explicitly gives the electors the power to do this, to become what we call faithless electors. And that's why. Hamilton wrote about this in the Federalist Papers. I think it's 52 or 53. It's somewhere in there. And, he said that this would be a way to weed out people of low character, low moral character. It certainly didn't work with Donald Trump, who lost the election by 3 million votes, but still won the Electoral College.
Or George Bush, for that matter.
Who lost by 500,000 votes.
Yeah. But the idea somehow that the this is the myth, that the Electoral College is this, it was a power grab on the part of slave owners. That, I think, is something that was been out.
Mythology.
Yeah. Right. It's wild to.
What it did was it did give people in the South, which was far more remote from the Northeast. The Northeast was fairly concentrated. It did give people in the South the ability to not blindly vote for somebody, but that's not enhancing the power of Southern slave owners. That's just making the elections work better, basically.
Well, you address a general misconception, which honestly is buttressed, I think, by so much of what we've seen and the general momentum, and sort of an oligarchical momentum. Oligarchical would be a ding word. The momentum associated with a power grab on the part of those who are the wealthiest. And what you craft here is this clean narrative of the way it really happened, which is not a power grab on the part of the wealthiest. In fact, you suggest that the wealthiest in the birthing of America actually were ready to give up a lot of, or some of, what they had. It was the opposite of a power grab. It was really a way to allow more to participate. This is from the wealthy landowners of the time.
Right. You're talking about the entire Constitution now, not just the Electoral College, right?
Exactly. I'm sorry. I've gone to the Constitution now. Right.
No, that's good. Yeah, another one of the myths, and this one was kind of burned into American consciousness in 1929 when Charles and Mary Beard published their History of the United States, which, Charles was a socialist, Mary was a Marxist. They were professors at Columbia University, and they were looking at everything in American history basically through the lens of economics, of a Marxist critique of American economics. And so they just basically assumed without much evidence, and I have their book, the 2-volume set, and read it. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read the part about this, and just basically assumed without evidence that the Constitution was written by the richest people in America for the richest people in America to preserve their wealth. And Forrest McDonald did an in-depth analysis of this in 1956 in a book that he published. He's since passed away. And he went back and he looked at a couple of things. Number one, who were the people who signed the Declaration and signed the Constitution? Well, it turns out that they were not the richest people in the United States, or what we call the United States now, in the colonies. The richest people in the colonies, like the Johnson family up on Hudson River that had this castle with 300 European, retainers, they called them. They were dressed like the Swiss Guard, and wore, armor like the old knights. That was a rich family, and they fled to Canada when the American Revolution happened. Most of the genuinely rich people in the United States were deeply connected to the British monarchy and to the East India Company, and so they fled, or they took the side of the British. The richest man to sign the Declaration of Independence was John Hancock, and in today's dollars, his net worth at the time he signed the Constitution was about $700,000. He left no legacy. There's not a John Hancock Foundation named after him, like there is a Rockefeller Foundation, or there's no family wealth. Jefferson died in bankruptcy. Washington died in bankruptcy. Madison's family home was gone within a generation. I mean, these guys were basically the upper middle class, the ones whose names we know. And the ones whose names we don't know, a lot of the people who were involved in both the Declaration and the Constitution were like farmers and lawyers and teachers. And so, it wasn't the truly rich of America on behalf of the truly rich of America. And then B, when you look at in the individual constitutional ratifying conventions, what you find is that the truly rich generally opposed the Constitution. Patrick Henry in Virginia, for example, the richest man in Virginia, the largest slaveholder in the state, he had 360 enslaved people. I was going to say Americans, but I guess you couldn't quite call.
Not yet, right, American at that point.
Time. And America wasn't even a thing at that point in time. But Patrick Henry spoke up loudly against the Constitution because he was concerned that Article 1, Section 8 would give the president the power to call up the Virginia militia, which is, I write about this in my book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, which is why James Madison changed the first draft of the Second Amendment from "for the security of a free nation" to "for the security of a free state," to assuage Henry's concern that the president could destroy the slave patrol of Virginia, which was the Virginia militia, by simply calling it up and moving it to another state. And that still didn't satisfy Patrick Henry. He was not a fan of the Constitution. So, and what McDonald found in looking at state after state after state was that in every single state, the majority of the people who voted for ratification of the Constitution were people who were in debt, people who were small subsistence level farmers, teachers, lawyers, which was not a high paid profession at the time, kind of the lowly professions and the average person. And the people who were opposed to it, by and large, were the wealthy mercantilists and merchants and the people who had amassed a lot of personal wealth.
And there is a sense that those, even, for example, George Washington, had an estate along with Jefferson, et cetera, and that he was among those who were the super wealthy. But as you point out, at his death, he wouldn't have even had the capital, I think you say in the book, to have bought his slaves and freed them. They were all freed, I suppose.
Yeah, when he died, it was his intention to free his slaves when he died, and he couldn't afford to do it.
Exactly. Thank you. But the other thing that I thought there was a purity to it, and then I do want to get to the call call to action. I mean, I could just talk to you, all day about. I think there's great stuff in this book, but obviously you're a great mind on other stuff. But that there was an idealism on the part of these guys, that it was the opposite of a power grab. It was the opposite of. They were really trying to do something for the good of this place, this new place, America, and they saw it as something incredibly new. You have a line. They realized that the 7,000-year history of what they called civilization, only once before, he said, in this 7,000-year history, only once before in Athens, and only for a brief flicker of a few centuries, had anything like representative democracy ever been brought into existence and survived more than a generation or three. Their writings show that they truly believed they were doing sacred work, something greater than themselves. It's great because it flies in the face of so much which is the popular narrative.
Well, and the popular narrative is informed by wealthy white people, who would love a historical justification for their wealth and for the power that they're trying to grab. I also think, Tom, this country set up by rich white guys, and it still protects rich white guys. It's helped by the second part still being, sadly, I think, kind of true, which is that wealthy white guys do well in this society. That doesn't mean that first part is true. And that's kind of what I think is interesting about your book and revealing about the book. Yeah. Over time, the people, white people basically, have, well, not just over time. I mean, from the beginning, from 1619, white people have held power and position in this land, stolen land from Indians, and enslaved people. And there's a long tail to that. This is a long legacy from that. But yeah, real.
But I love the fact that those framers. And, I've talked smack about the framers also because I'm so frustrated by where we've ended up. And we still talk about the framers with this deification that's gone on. But I think the reality is, after visiting with your book, and it's a quick read, it's really great. I don't mean to thump it too much, but I think it really is it's a good thing to grab a hold of and just get through. I think I have a new respect for them, to be perfectly honest. But now to the call to action and the things that have happened and how that Constitution has been perverted, et cetera. And I know we only have a couple minutes left, but my question is how to get the horse back in the barn that seems to have gotten out of the barn.
Right. The big problem that America has right now, outside of, I think the last time you and I talked, it was about my book, The Hidden History of Neoliberalism, how Reaganism gutted America. And that was a big problem, but that was facilitated by Lewis Powell's plan in 1971, the Powell Memo, to have basically the rich take over America. And then Richard Nixon put him on the Supreme Court in 72. And then in 76, he and a bunch of other conservatives on the court ruled that wealthy people's money being given to politicians was no longer to be considered bribery. It was considered free speech, that money was speech. And then 2 years later, in a decision that Lewis Powell himself actually authored, First National Bank versus Bellotti, the Supreme Court ruled that applied to corporations as well. And then, of course, in 2010, the Supreme Court tripled down on this with Citizens United. And so, that legalization of political bribery in 78 was what floated the Reagan administration into office in 1980 on a small tsunami of oil money. And has sustained the Republican Party and frankly some Democrats ever since. So the big challenge now is how do we unwind political bribery, because all of these other problems, the reason why billionaires, your average American billionaire right now pays 3.4% income tax is because the Supreme Court legalized their ability to purchase enough politicians to rewrite the tax code for them. The reason why we've got virtually every industry in America now controlled by fewer than 5 corporations and run as cartels, and they're price gouging us, producing inflation, is again because the Supreme Court legalized the bribery of politicians by those corporations and their CEOs and their stockholders. So, the privately held ones. So this is the cancer that conservatives on the court embedded in the heart of America in the 70s, with the goal of basically taking this country back from what they viewed as socialism, which was the New Deal, FDR's New Deal. And, they've been doing battle against the New Deal ever since. Donald Trump just recently declared how if he becomes president, he's going to, basically seize all the power and destroy all these agencies that came out of the New Deal and came out of even Nixon, the EPA. And,
well, apropos of the EPA, I mean, I talk about the Supreme Court. It's an activist court without question. It's activist on the part of business, I think, in addition to the Roe v. Wade and the rollback and everything else that gets publicity. The idea somehow that you could completely undercut the government's ability to regulate, toxins in the water and toxins it's insanity, Thom. And yet, what you're talking about, the kind of reforms you're talking about, would require what then? A constitutional convention? Exactly. How do you see it, and what realistically could happen?
Well, Congress has the ability to overturn or overrule an awful lot of what the Supreme Court does. The For the People Act actually put restrictions back on money, in politics, some substantial ones. Now, it wasn't a complete repudiation of Citizens United. It was maybe a 20% repudiation, but it was significant. And provided for public financing for national presidential elections and all kinds of cool stuff. And it passed the House of Representatives, and it had 51 votes in the Senate. It would have passed the Senate, except the Republicans filibustered it. And then Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema refused to go along with breaking the filibuster. So, that has to be, I think, our first order of business, is revisiting the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act in probably a new form. But even if it came up identical to the last time, I'd be happy with that. But that's going to have to wait until 2025 after the 2024 election, if we can keep the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Yeah, and even so, it's such it's a razor thin margin, and it just seems as though, which is why the court is so powerful, Congress can't get a lot done anymore. Thom, it's very hard to imagine these kinds of watershed legislative moments that you're describing happening in this Congress.
Well, that's because, it is now legal for right-wing billionaires to own politicians, and they are doing it. The last election was a $4 billion election. I mean, the election before that was a $1 billion election. The next election is probably going to be the 2024 that people say it might be a $10 billion election. I mean, we're looking at an exponential growth of not only the wealth of the top 1%, but the amount of money that they're throwing into politics. And they just view it as an investment. It's you invest $30-40 million in buying a couple of hundred politicians, and out of that you get $1 billion tax break.
And it's hard to get those politicians to vote against the gravy train, I think. But the hidden history of American democracy, rediscovering humanity's ancient way of living. You do touch on the Senate, and in our last minute or two, I feel the Senate is flawed, and it really flawed. I'd open up the hood on the Senate. Give me some thoughts on that, please.
Sure. Well, because each state has only 2 senators, and we now have some very, very large states. California has 40 million people, and they have the same number of votes in the United States Senate as does Wyoming with 600,000 people. It's just not particularly small d democratic. And right now, the Democrats, you got a 50-50 Senate, but the Democrats represent 41 million more people than do Republicans. That's not healthy. That's not good for a democracy. And so my humble proposal, was that we simply add 4 largely Democratic senators by enfranchising Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. If we really wanted to go crazy, and by the way, 3 Republican presidents did this. Lincoln, for example, needed 2 more Republican senators. And at that time, the threshold to add a senator was for a territory to become a state was, as I recall, 39,000 citizens. And there were fewer than, as I recall, 7,000 citizens. It's in the book, the actual numbers. I'm pretty sure I've got them right, but don't fact check me. But Nevada at that time, the territory only had about 7,000 people in it. So Lincoln just said, screw it. We're going to make them a state anyway. I need 2 Republican senators. And then Benjamin Harrison did the same thing with the Dakota Territory, which barely had enough people for one to be one
Crazy.
state. He made it into 2 states to get 4 Republican senators. So this has been done before.
Yeah, I mean, the Puerto Rico, if you believe in one person, one vote, I just don't understand. These people deserve representation. I grew up in Washington, D.C., so, I guess if you grow up with nothing, you're kind of used to nothing. You kind of rationalize it, but it really is wrong. But as you suggest, it's pure politics that Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. don't have representation. Look, love your stuff. I'm a big fan, and I want you to write more because apparently that's the only way we're going to have conversations on this show is every time you do a book. So I want you to come back and visit. The new one is The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living. The great Thom Hartmann. Thank you, Thom. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, enjoy it.
What could this be? Let's look. I'm so excited. It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Is CinemaScope.
Show. I'm Kim McAllister. Let's get right into the news. The state of Texas showing no sign of removing that floating border wall ahead of a federal deadline to comply. We mentioned it earlier. More information. The system of buoys, which is floating in the Rio Grande near the town of Eagle Pass, has the support of the Border Patrol Union. The Justice Department threatened to file a lawsuit if this barrier is not removed by 2 p.m. Eastern. It looks like they've fixed them for a fight in Texas. Democrats calling on Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell to end an Alabama senator's hold on military promotions. This is Alabama Republican Tommy Tuberville, pictured here, blocking hundreds of senior-level promotions over his opposition to the Pentagon's policy on abortions. Democrats say the hold threatens national security and military readiness. Somehow, still, this has been allowed to continue. There are some big protests going on in Israel. Let's see. There it is. I got the right picture up there. So protests in Israel after the country's parliament approved a key portion of a controversial judicial overhaul pushed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Lawmakers unanimously passed the bill 64-0 after a group opposed to the sweeping reform stormed out of the chamber today. Critics say it undermines democracy in Israel. Let's go back to that picture I showed you previously. This is a bad accident. Boat versus house injured 6 people seriously after this boat ran aground and slammed into a home in Missouri. Officials say all 8 people on board the boat on the Lake of the Ozarks were ejected. None were wearing required safety vests. The driver, 47-year-old Adam Ramirez of California, was cited for boating while drinking. Yeah, can't do that. In Sonoma County, voters are not likely to approve what is a proposed climate resiliency tax measure. A new poll of 800 people shows just over half support the measure, which aims to reduce the local impacts of climate change through a 1/4-cent sales tax or $52 a year parcel tax. A 2/3 vote, of course, needed for it to pass. The Regional Climate Protection Authority wanted to get the measure on the ballot next year, but again, in Sonoma County, with the beautiful rolling hills and environment, voters aren't likely to pass that. A new California law will require officers to tell drivers when they are being pulled over. So the officer won't be able to come up to you and say, "You know what you're doing? You know why I pulled you over?" No, they have to tell you now. That is before the questioning. They have to. It starts next year, but there's another effort underway now. The State Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board, I didn't know we had one, wants to expand the data that police are required to report. If the regulations go through, officers would have to explain who they stop, the stated reason, and the actual reason as well. A high-speed train connecting Southern California to Las Vegas is a step closer to becoming reality. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of this train.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I had a picture of it, but now I can't find it. Anyway, this train is a step closer to becoming reality. It's been one of those, they've been fighting to get it done. But the project can now move forward after receiving environmental review approval from the Federal Railroad Administration. The train is expected to take passengers from Rancho Cucamonga to the Strip in Las Vegas in about 2 hours. That's half the time it takes to drive that area. Construction could start later this year, could be done by 2027. They call it the Bright Line. And yes, we are now officially in Shark Week. Yeah. And if you didn't know, is he the king of Neptune, Albert? Is that what he is in the movie? The king of the ocean?
Aquaman?
Aquaman, yeah. Isn't he? He's Aquaman, but he's also like King Neptune or something, right? I don't know.
I'm not really a DC guy, sorry.
He says that the ocean is close to his heart, and he really, really wanted to be the host of Shark Week. And so Jason Momoa is indeed the Shark Week host. Yeah. So it's officially Shark Week on the Discovery Channel. It is the 25th year of Shark Week. Can you believe we've been doing Shark Week for 25 years? The show's, again, watched on Discovery Channel or streamed on Discovery Plus and Max. And the programming starts each night at 8 p.m. with Jason Momoa at the top of the festivities. And I know we're going to talk about this in just a moment. We've got a winner for the Powerball $1 billion jackpot. But now, if you didn't win, you have another chance because the Mega Millions jackpot is also approaching $1 billion. Nobody won Friday's drawing, which makes tomorrow's drawing worth about 820 mil. It is the 5th largest Mega Millions jackpot ever. Maybe not quite $1 billion, but we're getting there. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing here?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
We have a Law and Disorder for you. We have a That's Rich for you. Got a lot of great stuff coming up on the Mark Thompson Show. Also, a bit of an announcement. I know we've talked about this before, but I made a little graphic that I wanted to show you. As of August 1st, we've got a time change coming up. So the shows are kind of moving around a little bit. We've got I know Nikki Maduro usually comes after Mark Thompson, but she'll be moving to before from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Mark Thompson show shifting from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And if we can get it off the ground, there will be a 1-hour show right after Mark Thompson called The After Party Live. Here's how YouTube works. In order to go live on the show on August 1st, we have to get 1,000 subscribers. And I think right now we have 410, 411. So I will ask everyone right now, if you could, and you don't even have to watch the show, just subscribe to it. theafterparty.live, www.theafterparty.live. It's a 2-click thing. You go there and then click subscribe, and that's it. Don't have to think about it again. But if you could do it, I'd really appreciate it. We might be able to get that show going August 1st if we can get everyone to subscribe so we can go for it. Thank you for humoring me. I hate to ask, but I'm grateful for your help. Okay, I wanted to talk about this story before we get into Law and Disorder, because I think it's actually pretty funny. There's this bike street on Valencia Street in San Francisco, and I guess cyclists are not happy with the bike lane there. And so someone has put up these signs that are really, really similar to construction signs, to real construction signs. And they kind of make you do a double take. This one, LOL, I don't know how you'll merge. Good luck, cyclists. We regret this bike lane. There's many of them. It goes on and on, but just kind of something funny in San Francisco and on this bike lane on Valencia Street, where cyclists are not happy with this bike lane and how you have to navigate everything. So I thought that was kind of funny. Oh, and I did want to talk to you about the Stanford story, because we're following that story here on the Mark Thompson Show. And this one is, it's heated up with the Stanford University president, who has now resigned. And the person who is responsible for the investigation is a freshman, a 19-year-old freshman who is working at the Stanford Daily and sees this kind of scuttlebutt going on this website, this scientific website. I'm trying to get the name of the website. Oh, it's called PubPeer, PubPeer, PubPeer. And it's a highly technical scientific forum where people in science can analyze published works. And so people in this PubPeer site were saying, I don't know, the pictures look doctored. Everything looks manufactured. We don't think this is real. And so this 19-year-old journalism student and worker for the Stanford Daily starts looking into it. And he takes the pictures to an expert, a picture expert, photography expert, to see if they've been doctored or manipulated in any way. This woman is the foremost research misconduct investigator for this type in the entire world, according to the reporter. She's eagle-eyed, she's a professional, and she looked at the pictures. She said they've been manipulated. Then someone else that he took them to said they've been manipulated. So he writes this story, gets a lot of pressure from the university president's office. He says, one of the things, and I think this is so important, he said, the question was asked by the LA Times of this young man, what pressures did you experience as a student journalist? And he said, we're really lucky the Stanford Daily is celebrating its 50th year of independence from the university. That was important. This reporting would never have happened without that, especially after we started receiving legal threats from the university president. He said, I think the fact that we're independent made it possible for us to keep on digging. So that is the story as this young man, 19 years old, Theo Baker, uncovers and keeps digging and doesn't relent to pressure. Well done. It turns out his parents are journalists too, for pretty significant publications. So he comes by it honestly. But this was his his doing. And I think he's going to have a huge future. So well done. All right, let's get to, what are we doing? Law and Disorder? I think we're doing Law and Disorder next. Let's get to it.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Oh, yeah, this next story on Law and Disorder, we must show you the video. This is crazy. In San Francisco, they're looking for 5 people who got out of a car and made a complete run for it. Still haven't been found. But the accident, it turns out there's video of it. So you can see this car going off of a dead-end street, flying down these stairs in San Francisco and overturning at the bottom. The video is absolutely wild. Let's watch. That's crazy. Can we get the sound, Albert?
Off that street. We got a different angle coming down this street. You can see it hitting the tree, taking it down, and lands upside down on 19th and Sanchez. It appears no one was badly hurt. Today we spoke with neighbors about what happened in the moments after that crash. Here's NBC Bay Area's Alyssa Gord.
Watch as this white sedan speeds down a dead-end street Saturday evening in Dolores Heights, breaks through the metal stairwell railing, and comes barreling down the steps. It flies through the top of a tree before landing upside down on 19th and Sanchez streets, seen here on a neighbor's Nest camera.
I was reading bedtime stories to my 2-year-old, and I heard a sound that I could not place that was extremely loud.
This father of 2 joined his neighbors as they rushed out of their homes. One of them helped free the 5 people inside the car. Others called 911. The fire department says all of the people in the car fled on foot. Here, a neighbor's surveillance camera video shows 3 of the people who were in the car walking away from the scene. One man carried a skateboard, a woman and a man in a ski mask follow behind. Neighbors worry the abandoned car may have been a stolen vehicle.
I think it's a great example of how the lawlessness in San Francisco actually has real impact to real citizens living in their homes. We can use this as an example of how we need to fix our city.
This man, involved in one of Dolores Heights' neighborhood watch groups, asked us not to show his face, concerned for his safety.
Well, it's kind of a freak accident. A lot of us work together to keep the neighborhood safe.
San Francisco police have not confirmed if the car was stolen and are investigating the crash. People who live nearby point out how close the car came to hitting passersby. 3 women narrowly missed being hit by less than a minute.
Yeah, I mean, what's scary is my family goes up and down these steps all the time. My daughter and I have a passion project to try to plant the succulents in the planters here, and we could have easily been standing there at that moment.
Yeah, just crazy. And
if you close your eyes there, Kim, and you just listen to that guy talk, he kind of sounds like John Daly. Almost sounds like John Daly.
Well, I'll tell you what I thought when I saw that video. I don't know. I mean, the car goes flying off that street all the way down the steps, crashes into a tree and overturns. I don't know how not one of the 5 people in that vehicle are injured. I guess we could say we don't know if they're injured because they all got out of the car and made a run for it, but they weren't severely injured enough that they couldn't get up and run. And that's what surprised me.
They had their seatbelts on, Kim. It's kind of a good showing for that car safety aspect. But, it looked like the guy with the skateboard was walking away with blood on his forehead.
Okay.
In that security cam. But
got a little ding there. That's right.
Got a little ding. But, I mean, they walked it off. If you could walk it off, then, it's not that bad.
I mean, if you're going to have an accident, way to go. This next story really pisses me off. You know what Lotus, maybe some of you don't know what Lotus Fountain is, but after the great earthquake in San Francisco, Lotus Fountain, this historical piece of art, is where people went to post notes saying, here I am, I've been in this earthquake, I'm alive, meet me at whatever. So they would post notes to family saying that they had survived, telling them where to meet up. And people left notes for loved ones and friends on Lotus Fountain. So every year when San Francisco marks the day of the big earthquake, the big one, we gather at Lotus Fountain and hold a remembrance ceremony. It is a important monument in San Francisco. Well, somebody vandalized it. Yes, they did. And it's not the first time that Lotta's Fountain has been vandalized. So what happened is, and you can see off to the left how kind of a piece is missing. It is a piece of this nearly 150-year-old monument vandalized last week. A tour guide noticed one of the cast iron flower adornments had been removed. He called the San Francisco Arts Commission. This was on July 12th. The commission's communications director apparently then told the Civic Art Collection team they have to care for the city's monuments. Now to fix it, they have to create a mold, cast it in iron. The last time this happened in 2021, when one of the iron pomegranates was broken off and stolen, it took 2 years to fix it. They say it took a bit of time to address because it was during the pandemic and resources were scarce. Finding a suitable vendor familiar with how to address it was tough. So they say we don't have a timeline as to when Lotta's Fountain will be fixed, that they hope to get it done as quickly as possible and are hoping that it won't take as long as last time. This fountain, Lotta's Fountain, was a gift to the city of San Francisco in 1875 by Lotta Crabtree, who was an actress and a dancer and started her career performing for gold rush miners as a young girl, and then went on to become one of California's biggest entertainers of that time, and had enough money to donate this incredible fountain to San Francisco. So yeah, it's been a focal point of the city, and it's hard for me to believe that someone would damage it. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. This is an interesting call for police. In Novato, bears. Now, I don't know if this is a picture of the actual bears in Novato, but they are black bears. And it was a mother and 2 cubs. I'll say that Sonoma County, Marin County, Novato's in Marin, it's not necessarily a place where we see bears. It has happened before, but it's extremely rare. And so over the weekend, Novato police get a call. There's bears in a local park. Yes. Now they're warning residents, be careful. There's bears out here. A mother bear and 2 cubs were reported to be in the area of Miwok Park and Novato Boulevard. Yeah, that's right about where it is in Novato. So Novato police are advising the community, use extreme caution if you're entering that area. Be very aware of places that are wood or contain lots of brush. They say these bears are generally afraid of people and that their aggressive behavior is pretty rare. But they say if you see a bear, avoid it, call 911. Don't run, back away slowly, and don't turn your back on the bear. Don't lie down and play dead. Fight back if you're attacked. They want you to avoid hiking or jogging through wooded areas where bears are most active. Always leave that bear an escape route. Don't corner the bear. Give it a place for it to exit. And keep close on small kids while you're traveling in wooded areas. You can also make yourself look bigger by trying to wave your arms. It is not the first time we've seen a bear in places where it's pretty much has almost never happened. There was a bear in Petaluma a year or so ago. Now we have bears in Novato, and it seems like
there's never been anything like this.
Yes, it seems like another indication of animals coming, to find water, or, human space encroaching on animal space. It's interesting because I think their habitat is changing. And so I don't know what that says about the environment or what their needs are, but there's something there. So yeah, bears in Novato. Be careful, people.
I mean, it looks like it's in the middle of like a big neighborhood. So
it is. It's a very populated area. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of I wouldn't say scary, but it is, to your points, like, are we encroaching? Are they more desperate? It's a combination of both of those, and it's kind of sad. They're so cute, but you stay away.
Yeah, stay away. Bears in Novato. I can't believe that came out of my mouth. I guess you could call it good news for people that are struggling, don't have a lot of money, and are facing parking tickets and cars being towed in San Francisco. Since 2018, San Francisco has towed and seized thousands of cars parked illegally, but were owned by people who had not paid at least 5 parking tickets. Advocates for the poor and homeless say this policy is heartless and unauthorized by law, and now a state appeals court judge in California agrees that is illegal to tow people's cars that have had 5 parking tickets, that you can't do that. The First District Court of Appeal writes, tows are a significant intrusion on property rights that may seriously impact the lives of the owners. So the Supreme Court ruled in the 70s that law enforcement officers can remove vehicles from the streets that are interfering with traffic or that pose a threat to public safety. But the appeals court said San Francisco's municipal transportation agency policy of towing safely and lawfully parked vehicles without a warrant based solely on unpaid parking tickets does not meet that standard set in the 70s. So if there's a danger to the street, right? If it's interfering with traffic or posing a threat to public safety, yes. If you just haven't paid your parking tickets, no. So, San Francisco tows, they say, do not involve cars that, due to their location, are presenting any threat to public health or convenience at the time of the tow, the judge wrote. He said the city has other less disruptive ways of collecting overdue parking fees, like extra charges when a vehicle's registration is renewed or legal actions to garnish the owner's wages.
Are they charging for parking now in the city on Sundays? Because I know it was free for the longest time, but I know that they were planning to do that.
It was going to go into effect. I don't know if it has kicked in yet. I thought they were giving people a little more time to get used to it. But yeah, they'll get the city wants their money, and they'll get it however they can, right?
Yeah, either your car's gonna get ticketed, you're no free parking on Sundays, or your car's gonna get broken into. Welcome to the city.
But think about the people who have the parking tickets, that have 5 unpaid parking tickets, right? And then they get their car towed. And then there's fees associated with that, right? Because you have to go and get pay your fees that you owed, your parking ticket fees, and then you have to pay the towing fee, and then there's usually a storage fee. And if you couldn't come up with that right away, there's a storage fee for every day your car sits in their storage lot. So now you probably never get your car back. Yeah. Judge says no, can't do that. I don't know if you heard about this story, but it happened in the South Bay over the weekend. There's a couple people in custody after allegedly bringing they call it a gun, to a bar fight in Menlo Park. So there was this fight at this club called Club San Luis. It happened at about 2:40 in the morning in the Menlo Park area. It's kind of not in Menlo Park proper, but right near it. Well, the 2 men involved allegedly in this fight left and came back. And this time they brought what looked like a rifle and started threatening the crowd that was outside the bar. Witnesses pointed to a description of the vehicle, the license plate number, as both of these men ran off again. This time, the sheriff's deputies in Santa Clara County come. They spot the vehicle, they do a stop, and they find this BB gun rifle is in the vehicle. They make a couple of arrests. Both are in custody now and booked into jail. One of them being held on a $50,000 bond. But I think that's pretty scary. They're apparently pointing this rifle at the people, but nobody knows that it's a BB gun. You can't do that. That's not cool. Let's see. Oh, we're almost done.
That's not cool. And also, they do check, obviously, the security checks as you're walking into those establishments. But unfortunately, they could just go back to their cars and settle whatever score happened inside. So
we are almost out of time on Law and Disorder, but I wanted to end it on a positive note because we told you last week about this ice cream vendor in Oakland that was robbed in broad daylight. Guy's in his 80s. He sends his money back to Peru to help care for his autistic son. And a couple people came up and beat the heck out of him and stole, I think that was $120. That was his take for the day, that they stole from him and his little ice cream. Not even really a truck. It's more like an ice cream cart that he was pulling along. Well, over the weekend, the Fruitvale community in Oakland came together to support Juan. And they bought every single one of his frozen treats. Every ice cream. Bought them out. And one guy apparently gave him $500. So, yeah. East Bay residents, many from the car racing community, organized this buyout. They say, we want to let Juan know the community is big and it's there for him. They say most people had never met Juan before, but they wanted to show him. And they say for him to be as old as he is and to be doing what he's doing, which is pulling around this ice cream cart on the streets of Oakland, for that situation to take place, you kind of know it hit home for me. And that's why this one man gave him $500. Juan brought to tears by this outpouring of community support. He said, he told NBC Bay Area, and thanks to NBC Bay Area for this story and also for the video that we ran earlier of the car flying off the street. But he said there are bad people, but there are also good people in the neighborhood, and that he's grateful for the support. So, well done, City of Oakland.
I'm not gonna cry.
Yeah, I know. It's emotional. Let's get to some news, and then we'll talk about That's Rich here on The Mark Thompson Show.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and let us dig right into news because parts of the United States are sizzling, still under a record-setting heat wave. National Weather Service issuing heat alerts again today for 40 million Americans across more than a dozen states. The daytime highs across the desert Southwest are expected to soar to 110 degrees or more in Palm Springs, in Phoenix, and in Tucson. And again, we talked about this earlier, no signs in sight that Texas is ready to comply with the federal government's demand to dismantle their floating border wall, which apparently is wrapped up with razor wire. The system of buoys floating in the Rio Grande has the support of the Border Patrol Union, Texas, now under legal deadlines set by the Department of Justice to remove it. The White House says it is unfortunate that a vote on a judicial overhaul plan took place in Israel with the slimmest possible majority. The plan removes the court system's ability to strike down unreasonable government decisions. The White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said, as a lifelong friend of Israel, President Biden has expressed his views. Major changes in a democracy need to be enduring and must have as broad a consensus as possible. UPS and the Teamsters Union returning to the bargaining table this week. The contract negotiations will resume tomorrow. They are aimed at averting a strike by 340,000 UPS workers. The Teamsters' 5-year labor deal with a shipping giant expires at the end of the month. And there is a new poll showing voters are not overly enthusiastic about the prospect of a 2024 matchup between President Biden and former President Trump. In fact, less than half of those surveyed by the Yahoo News YouGov poll said they favored either candidate. President Biden, though, had the slight edge with 47% support to former President Trump's 43%. Is following this story as well out of New York, and it turns out a secret soundproof room has reportedly been found in the alleged Gilgo Beach killer's New York home. It is said to be in the basement of Rex Hauerman's home on Long Island, a soundproof room where police think at least one of the alleged serial killer's victims may have been murdered. Heavy excavation equipment is now being brought in as investigators continue to search for DNA evidence linking the 59-year-old architect to the murders of at least 3 women more than 10 years ago, and likely many more than that. Speaking of bears, Here's a woman, well, it was not a bear per se. A woman is dead after what's being described, well, as an apparent bear encounter near Yellowstone National Park. It is a bear encounter. Officials say a body was found Saturday on Buttermilk Trail west of West Yellowstone in Montana. Grizzly bear tracks were found at the scene, according to authorities. So she didn't make it out of that encounter with a bear. Again, in the East Bay, the Martinez Refining Company dealing with its third release of toxic materials in 8 months. It's called coke dust, and it got into the air again Saturday night, covering the ground, parked cars, other surfaces in nearby neighborhoods with what looks like soot. Really unhealthy. Health officials say it can be washed off with water. At last check, the Air District has not received any complaints of the coke dust over the weekend. So, the kind of ultimatum that Governor Gavin Newsom gave the Temecula Valley Unified School District appears to be working. The district approved a new elementary school curriculum that it has twice rejected. Governor Gavin Newsom threatened to fine the district $1.5 million if they didn't approve the course of study. They did make a compromise by holding off on one of the curriculum's 4th grade lessons for further review. An upset Newsom says it was never about the board's rights, parents' rights, or late gay politician Harvey Milk, who apparently was covered by the curriculum. The governor says it's about extremists' desire to control information and censor the materials used to teach our children. Home prices are reaching record highs in at least 34 California zip codes, most in the central and southern part of our state, with 12 in Los Angeles and Orange County, 6 in Fresno County. Experts predict that price growth this year will be the hottest in the less expensive areas. They say low inventory is driving up prices, with more buyers willing to accept higher mortgage rates. And we talked about this earlier, but we'll finish up with it. Another change for the social media giant in California. Twitter rebranded overnight. The iconic bird logo is gone, and in its place is an X. Owner Elon Musk says the idea is to embody the imperfections in us that make us unique. He shared a photo of the San Francisco headquarters lit up by a giant new X. Website's already been updated, and the app version expected to follow. This report sponsored by you. The Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded, and that means we rely on you for support. You can check us out at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. That is where you will find the Patreon and the PayPal link. Of course, the Super Chat is live, and we appreciate whatever support you throw our way. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You
nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Seriously, what the
It is the Mark Thompson Show. And again, thank you for all the ways you contribute to the show. Right now, let's get to a little bit of That's Rich.
Who are they?
The top 1/10 of 1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, this first story with That's Rich, Albert, we have to pull the video. I just read a story that this lady was faking it. Of course, last week, I should have told, let me lay the groundwork first. Last week, someone won the Powerball $1 billion jackpot in Southern California, right? And so everybody's waiting. Who won? Will the person come forward? And there's a lot of video cameras outside the store. I think it's in Murrieta, California. It was somewhere in Southern California where this woman or this person won. Well, over the weekend, a woman came in, and I don't know if maybe she's auditioning because it's Southern California. Maybe she's looking for a movie role. But she goes into the store and throws herself on her knees and loses her mind.
I'll play the video muted
okay.
because I'm afraid there's subtitles to it, but I'm afraid that we might get flagged for this, but I'll share it now.
There she is, throwing herself. God bless you. I have won. I have won. They're saying, did you win the $1 billion? Yes, yes. Oh, I have to leave. There's too many cameras. Look at her. I mean, she looks like she is legitimately the winner, right? Yeah, she's hugging people. She's saying thank you. It's her $1 billion. She's not waving around the ticket, though. She's just kind of, but I would believe her. I mean, she looks like that's a pretty emotional reaction, right? And then she gets into her BMW and she drives away. The owner of the store pictured here says he doesn't think she's real. He knows his customers. He doesn't recognize her at all. But his daughters say, this is the owner's daughters, they say, well, actually, we think the woman is a daughter of the woman who bought the ticket. So is she fake? Is she real? Look at all the camera action out there. All the setup, people set up waiting for the winner to come forward of the $1 billion. Thanks for the video, Albert.
That's
Lottery
not fake.
officials.
That's real.
They say, listen, until we verify a ticket, nothing. There is no winner. Until we say this is the winning ticket, that's not the winner. So, but that reaction was crazy. And now today I read the story. This woman who came forward to say she won last week's $1 billion Powerball jackpot was apparently faking it.
My bad. I'm sorry.
That's pretty good acting, I thought. But I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. But I think she deserves at least an audition, Hollywood. I really do. Yeah. Let's get into the celebrity real estate action now. Apparently, Rihanna is selling her house. This is a pretty fancy place. And apparently it's not her house she lived in. It's her spare house. It's just extra that she has laying around. This house is in Beverly Hills, I think. Yeah, Beverly Hills. It's a Tudor style home in Beverly Hills. And I guess she bought it because she owns the house right next door to it. So perhaps she bought it to keep someone else from living there, didn't know which one she preferred, so why not buy them both?
Maybe the previous neighbors were a little too loud. I couldn't find any videos or photos of inside of the house, but here's an overhead shot.
It's
totally
really
not
nice.
creepy for somebody to take this shot. But
this is the spare house, right? Yeah. Extra. It's just extra. It is never lived in by Rihanna, a 4-bedroom, 5-bathroom home. She bought it for $10 million in March of 2021. She bought the house next door in 2020 for $13.75 million. And it has.
I mean, does the point of saying it's not lived in by Rihanna kind of devalue the home, or do you think that's gonna say it's more?
She owns it. She lives right next door. I don't think she's selling the next door house.
I know, but I think there's a percentage of people who would pay a lot more to know that she lived in the same house.
Oh,
you know?
really? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a slight flex when you're hosting a dinner party. Like, yeah, Rihanna used to live here instead of Rihanna used to own the house, but I don't know.
Well,
she
it
sat
has
on that toilet over there when the one you just went to the bathroom to. Yeah.
No, she didn't. The cathedral ceilings in the living room are a nice touch. The original fireplaces, wood and stone flooring. There's a family room with French doors that open to the backyard, a dining room that leads to a covered outdoor seating area, a chef's kitchen, a breakfast nook. The backyard, as you can see here, has a pool surrounded by manicured lawns, half a basketball court, a vegetable garden, several dining and lounge areas, a detached one-bedroom guest house with a kitchenette and office space. So there you go. Rihanna selling her spare Beverly Hills mansion for $10.3 million. It has big fancy gates in front too. You can
it must be nice to have a spare home.
It's a spare, just extra. Crazy. This is a pretty funny one. One of the stars of Shark Tank has this mobile home. Her name is Barbara Corcoran. She calls this mobile home her Taj Mahal. She put a TikTok video up, and I guess it's more than just a trailer. This thing it's pretty interesting. She said, I paid $800,000 for the home. I invested $150,000 for more renovations. The kitchen has the same tiles that she used in her penthouse in New York City. This is a mobile home, $1 million mobile home. Yeah. And she said, as beautiful as my New York City penthouse is, over the park with all this space, it doesn't have an ocean, and there's no arguing with the ocean. There's an allure to looking at the ocean that can't be beat, in my opinion. Her $1 million mobile home has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, its own terrace. It's very important. I guess she takes 2 baths a day, so she really needed a fancy bathtub in her $1 million mobile home. And this is, I guess, her California pad where she lives when she's filming out here.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. Imagine spending $1 million on a mobile home. All right. You go get it, Barbara. That's the way it goes. Let's move to James Corden. Of course, he moved back to London or England, and he sold his home in Los Angeles. Took a while, though, for him to actually unload this mansion. The former late show host finally sold the mansion. They say $17,125,000. They had listed this home. It's 8,600 square feet. They listed it in January for $22 million, but they had to keep dropping the price. Finally, they dropped it. Dropped it to $20,950,000. Like, that's going to make a big difference. Then in March, they cut it to $17,950,000, and they accepted the low offer of 17.1 and sold the house. So that's it. The house is gone. It took a while. It took longer than they thought. It's a 6-bedroom home on nearly half an acre in the Brentwood Park neighborhood. They did some extensive renovations during their stay. They have a kitchen with blue cabinets, you can see, Wolf appliances, a marble center island, a breakfast nook, even an outdoor kitchen with a pizza oven. That's a nice touch. I like the pizza oven situation. Custom molding, 2 fireplaces, vaulted ceilings, extensive security systems, which, you need if you're the VIP. Creston home automation. I don't know if that must be fancy. It has a primary suite, spacious sitting area, dual walk-in closets, a show-stopping bathroom with access to a private terrace, and a sumptuous secondary suite with its own kitchenette and office space. James Corden living large. The backyard has an in-ground trampoline, pool, and spa. The place made for entertaining. Finally sold for 17.1 after a couple of price cuts. Let's look at this house. Ooh, this is pretty. The former Oakland Raiders star, a lineman, Robert Gallery has his luxurious Lake Tahoe lodge listed for sale. This place is swanky. The award-winning home, I guess homes get awards now, is in Homewood. It's on the market for 10.2. So this could be your house. It's a 5,670 square foot mountain lodge right near the shores of Lake Tahoe.
Wow, this thing is beautiful.
It's really nice. It sits on 2.38 acres. So the retired Raider, Robert Gallery, and his wife had this home custom built in 2020. They haven't owned it that long. It's interesting, isn't it? By a local contractor. The result was such a hit that it won the Tahoe Style Award from Tahoe Quarterly Magazine in 2023. It's really pretty. You will have to pay an HOA fee, but it's only $75 a month. That fee goes toward the nearby buoys and 2 piers, which you can use. Private beach right across the street from the house. It's nice. Inside,
he didn't have the longest of NFL careers either. So, I mean, to have something this nice, and he must be doing well post career, which is good.
Maybe he invested well. It was enough. It's an open layout living room and kitchen. The full suite of kitchen appliances include a wine fridge, double-sided fireplace, beamed ceilings, floating steel staircases that elevate the home's rustic, chic aesthetic, radiant heat and air purification system, we need that for wildfires, and heated stairs offer the luxe feel of an upscale ski resort. It totally looks like a ski resort. What a dream
it looks like
house.
a modern ski resort. That's what it looks like. Wow.
So nice. Bedrooms have extraordinary details, picture windows, carved wood doors, wood-burning fireplaces, hardwood floors, a posh chandelier in the bedroom area as well. They have soaking tubs and glass showers and double vanities, plenty of storage everywhere as well. Separate 1-bedroom, 1-bath guest unit, perfect for hosting your family to come up for a nice ski weekend. Garages, 2 garages, spaces for up to 5 cars and a boat on the property there. This place. So Gallery played 8 seasons in the NFL, drafted by the Raiders with a 2nd overall pick in 2004, was apparently considered one of the best offensive line prospects in years, but never quite lived up to the hype. He's widely remembered for the long, flowing locks that came from under his helmet.
Yeah, because everybody knew him as kind of a draft bust, but like I said, he's done well for himself, and he's seems to be. I mean, this house is beautiful, Kim.
I don't know if I could sell that place. If I managed to own it ever in life, it'd be that kind of place that you'd want to pass down through generations, so everyone has a place in Tahoe to go. It's beautiful. Let's move on to another sports star. This is Chicago Bulls all-star Zach LaVine. Did I say it right, Albert?
Zach LaVine, close enough.
LaVine. He has purchased a $34 million Southern California beach estate for $34 million. It is an 11,200 square foot, 6-bedroom, 7-bathroom Tuscan-style villa in the gated community on the Newport coast. This is a mansion, California style. Got a stone walkway at the home's entrance leading to an oversized arched doorway. That's fancy right there. That's what that looks like. A dramatic staircase inside, marble steps, a rustic chandelier, high impact entry area, they call it. It's very like you walk in and bowls you over. A large kitchen, spacious center island. It's got wooden cabinetry and beamed ceilings and marble countertops. A separate dining area with a fireplace. Arched doorways.
How many bathrooms, Kim? Do you know how many bathrooms are in this thing?
What did it say? It said 6 bedrooms. It didn't say how many bathrooms, did it? I don't know. If only Brett were here to tell me how many bathrooms.
I know, but this is funny because NBA players make crazy amount of money. So this is just like chump change for Zach LaVine here. But this house is also really beautiful.
They say it looks like a 5-star spa. It has a home theater, a gym, a golf simulator, a built-in whirlpool. This guy knows how to live. Retractable TV, heated floors, of course, because we need those in Southern California. Look at the little stream that goes all the way around the yard. Like I don't know if it's a fish pond or a pool.
Yeah, it looks like there's fishes in this
Yeah.
rendering. Like one of those lazy river type of thing. A rich lazy river.
So rich lazy river. That's pretty much the size of it. He has starred as a shooting guard for the Chicago Bulls since 2017. He made 2 All-Star teams. I don't know what him buying a home in Southern California means. Does that mean he's moving here or changing teams, or just that he wants a California mansion? Because that's
I
fine.
think California mansion. He's known to. I mean, he signed a 5-year, $215 million contract with the Chicago Bulls. He made $37 million last season. He's going to be making $40 million this season, 43 the next, 45 and 48.
Wow.
So
that is chump change. You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it says 6 bedrooms, but it doesn't tell me how many bathrooms in the listing. But I don't care because it's gorgeous. That's really a nice house. That's a good one. Let's move on to Dean Cain. He's checking out of Southern California. You remember him, Superman?
Superman. He hosted a couple shows. Just what did he host? He hosted Ripley's Believe It or Not. That's what I remember watching him on. Yeah, he just showed all these wacky stories. But he's smart. He's leaving California. I'm surprised that Zach Levine's making a ton of money with all the taxes here. I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's not going to affect him that much. But I mean, I'd expect them to build a huge mansions not in California.
I think he's very conservative. Oh, and now the website link doesn't work, and I don't know why. But he's very conservative, and he's decided to leave California, and he's moving to this home in Henderson, Nevada. Is where he is headed. And he has this home in Henderson, Nevada that he's buying, and it's not opening, Albert. I'm sorry. We might have to circle back around to Dean Cain.
It's 6,500 square foot. Let me put it in our chat so you could get it. Here we go.
Yeah. The link all of a sudden stopped.
5 bedrooms. Henderson is close enough to the Strip. Lots of Filipinos in Henderson. Shout out to my Filipino brother, and they all work in the casinos and they all live in Henderson, but I don't think they're living in this neighborhood in Henderson.
No, I don't know how. I guess you're used to the heat if you're leaving Los Angeles, but I would want to stay by the ocean. But this house is a very affordable for $4 million in Henderson, Nevada. It's nice, but it's mansion-y, but it's very close to the homes next door, which makes me think that it's not an exclusive one like we just saw for Levine, right? This is a house, $4 million, 2-story home in Henderson, Nevada. It is in the Seven Hills community. It was the purchase made through a trust with Dean Cain listed as the trustee. It has neutral toned bricks, views of the Vegas Strip and the surrounding mountains and the nearby golf course. They call it an elegant walk on the water entrance, a double height living area with a linear gas fireplace, floor to ceiling brick columns, and an L-shaped open floor plan with disappearing walls of glass that bring the outdoors into you. So kind of interesting. It has 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms in Dean Cain's new house, and a primary suite with its own deck and a bathroom with views of the Nevada landscape, plus a soaking tub and a steam shower, an office, a home theater, a roof deck, a bar, a kitchen, infinity pool,
sounds like he got his bang for his buck there.
He got a waterfall. Yeah, bang for his buck. $4 million for all that. All right.
Yeah, it says here in the article he primarily acts in faith-based movies, and Fox News. A lot of people in the chat saying he's a frequent Fox News guest.
Yeah, he's very conservative. I think at one point he was saying he was going to run for president. That never came to fruition. Do you know?
There's never been anything like this.
You know who Rick Ross is?
I do.
Yeah, the rapper.
Yes, the rapper. Yeah.
He's dumping some serious cash on this oceanfront mansion in Miami. This is $37.5 million. And he apparently is slapping down this money for this. I don't like this mansion. Well, I know it's almost time to go, but can we show some pictures of it, Albert? It looks very industrial, like cold to me. So it's got this kind of metal staircase. I mean, it's nice, but it's just the whole place is very not lived in. Like you wouldn't feel comfortable there.
This looks like a fancy city hall. Like you walk in, and you're like, well, I have to go to my jury duty. And walking through these stores, yeah.
37.5. I mean, it is on the ocean on a special star island, but look at that. And I mean, that doesn't look like, it's not welcoming.
It looks like a very fancy law office. Like you're gonna go, and speak to some lawyer you can't afford.
Look at the living room. I mean, it's not like you want to just settle in there and have a cocktail and be comfortable. It's just very, I think, office space looking. This place, even the pool table, it's got the octagonal light above, and it's just very, I don't know. I don't look at the bathroom looks very, I don't know. It's clean, I'll give it that, but it's all just very, it's too shiny and too
looks a little slippery for me. Like I like to barefoot walk, and it might get wet. Obviously, it's the bathroom, so that looks dangerous to me.
$37.5 million for this impersonal oceanfront mansion in Miami. And that, my friends, that's rich.
Hold on, I got it.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
Next time on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. Well, it has been quite the show here on The Mark Thompson Show. And of course, Mark is back tomorrow. He will be back through the week, and then I'll be filling in again on Friday, and we'll have fun with Florida on Friday, of course. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the ways you contribute to the show in the chat and financially and everything else. TheMarkThompsonShow.com is where you can hit us for that. And again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you, Albert, for all the help. I appreciate you too.
Thank you. This was a good show. Very fun.
Mark will be back from DC live tomorrow. Until then, this is The Mark Thompson Show, and we bid you bye-bye.